Okay, tonight is Helaman chapter 16.
And now it came to pass that there were many who heard the words of Samuel the Lamanite, which he spake upon the walls of the city. And as many as believed on his word went forth and sought for Nephi, and when they had come forth and found him, they confessed unto him their sins, and denied not, desiring that they might be baptized unto the Lord. But as many as there were who did not believe in the words of Samuel were angry with him, and they cast stones at him upon the wall, and also many shot arrows at him as he stood upon the wall. But the Spirit of the Lord was with him, insomuch that they could not hit him with their stones, neither with their arrows.
Up until now, till the end of chapter 15, those were the words of Samuel the Lamanite and speaking to the Nephites. And as you would probably expect, that those who were listening, they had different kinds of reactions to that. But if you had to guess, you probably think it would be mostly a negative reaction, because that's how people who are sinful usually react to being told that they're being sinful. So, as you can see, it says Samuel said these things, and then now some people did believe. In the second half of verse 1, it says, as many as believed on his words went forth and sought for Nephi to confess their sins and be baptized. Nephi was the older son of Helaman. Okay, and it was basically in charge of the church at this time, although it appears to have mostly unraveled, right, at least in the Nephite nation. But yeah, he was the head of the church, basically. So yeah, the oldest son of Helaman. So therefore he was baptizing those who were confessing their sins. But probably since the Nephite nation was mostly wicked, again, perhaps he wasn't even able to do it in public, so to speak. That he doesn't say that, but they had to go find him. So it wasn't that there was like a church on every corner at this point, because that's not how it was going. So it says they had to go find him. So they went and found him and were baptized. All right. So that was those who believed in the words. Now those who didn't, in verse 2. Right, as you can see, it says those who did not believe in the words of Samuel, it says they were angry with him. Right, and it says they cast stones at him upon the wall, and many shot arrows at him too on the wall, right? So he's standing up on top of the wall because they wouldn't let him in the city, right? But when they were done, or they had heard enough, they said, we don't like this, so they started throwing rocks at him and shooting the bow and arrow, shooting arrows at him. So they were going to kill him, right? So they said, we don't want to hear anymore, so let's knock him off the wall, right? Let's kill him, let's shoot him with an arrow or throw rocks at him. Right, so all these people threw rocks at him or shot arrows at him, and all these people were throwing the rocks or shooting arrows. Nobody could hit him, right? And I'm guessing it was within reach where they should have been able to, and yet everything that they threw up at him or shot at him, everything missed, right? And again, whether it veered off and they saw it, whatever. The thing is, it was like miraculous. How could we all have missed him? Right? It would be like if somebody was right in front of us, and 100 of us started throwing rocks, and yet not a single one hit the person. You say, "Well, wait a minute, something's not right here."
Now when they saw this, that they could not hit him, there were many more who did believe on his words, insomuch that they went away unto Nephi to be baptized. For behold, Nephi was baptizing and prophesying and preaching, crying repentance unto the people, showing signs and wonders, working miracles among the people, that they might know that the Christ must shortly come, telling them of things which must shortly come, that they might know and remember at the time of their coming that they had been made known unto them beforehand, to the intent that they might believe. Therefore, as many as believed on the words of Samuel went forth unto him to be baptized, for they came repenting and confessing their sins.
So nobody was able to hit him, all right, and so much so that, as you see in verse 3, it says when they saw that nobody could hit him, it says many more believed on his words, right? They said, whoa, this really is a prophet of God. This really is somebody who's representing the Lord here, because he should be dead now, because we were all shooting the arrows at him or throwing rocks at him, and nobody could hit him at all, not even a single time. So it says that by itself was enough to convince a lot of the people. It says, and they went away unto Nephi to be baptized. All right, so it's okay. I've seen enough. Right, it's a point where you realize you're fighting against God, and then you can't win. So when they realize that all the rocks and the arrows couldn't touch Samuel the Lamanite, it says, okay, now we believe on what he's saying. So now it's just saying what Nephi was doing. It says, as in 4, it says, behold, Nephi was baptizing, prophesying, preaching, and so forth, because that was his job. He was the head of the church. That was his calling. So he was still over baptizing people, all right? And This is by telling them things which were to come, and so forth. So he was the baptizer at this point, and Samuel was the preacher. And so those who believed in the words of Samuel, and they went to Nephi to be baptized. See, Samuel wasn't there to baptize anybody. He was the preacher. He was the prophet. He was the one bringing forth God's message. So when he did, and they realized that they couldn't even kill him, then they were converted, and then they went to find Nephi, who was the one doing the baptizing.
But the more part of them did not believe in the words of Samuel. Therefore, when they saw that they could not hit him with their stones and their arrows, they cried unto their captains, saying, Take this fellow and bind him, for behold, he hath a devil, and because of the power of the devil which is in him, we cannot hit him with our stones and our arrows. Therefore take him and bind him, and away with him. And as they went forth to lay their hands on him, behold, he did cast himself down from the wall, and did flee out of their lands, yea, even unto his own country, and began to preach and to prophesy among his own people. And behold, he was never heard of more among the Nephites, and thus were the affairs of the people. And thus ended the 86th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi.
Right, so when you consider the different groups that we've mentioned so far in this chapter, it says some believed in the words of Samuel, and they went and were baptized. Others witnessed that they couldn't hit him with the rocks or the arrows, and so they were convinced then, and they went to be baptized. But still, even adding those two together, it wasn't as many as those who still didn't believe, even after all that, as it says in the beginning of verse 6. But the more part of them did not believe in the words of Samuel. So it's always another way to try to explain it if you want to, right? They said, oh, the devil's in him, the devil's protecting him, that's why we can't hit him. So there's a devil in him, so we need to fix this now, right? So that's why it says in 6, go grab Samuel and tie him up and so forth, and then we'll kill him that way. Once we have him tied up and down from the wall, then we'll go ahead and take care of him, right? So, but as you can see in the other ones, as they went and tried to do that, and then, okay, it's time to go now, right? He gave the message, some believed, you witnessed even the power of God in protecting me, and you still don't believe, well, now you've had all the chance you're going to have, so it's time for me to go now. So as you can see, it says in 7, it says he did come down from the wall, he fled out of their lands, and just returned to his own people. Okay, which is in the land of Nephi, where the Lamanites lived. So he left the land of Zarahemla and went back to his own people and spent, I guess, the rest of his life just preaching to those people. I mean, they needed repentance and salvation also, so he preached to the Lamanite people the rest of his days. As it says, he was never heard of more among the Nephites because things were so bad, so God sent a prophet, and that's it. He wasn't going to let this prophet be killed necessarily. He just used him somewhere else after that. And so he went back to his own land to preach among his own people, right? And that's how the 86th year of the reign of the judges ends.
And thus ended also the 87th year of the reign of the judges, the more part of the people remaining in their pride and wickedness, and the lesser part walking more circumspectly before God. And these were the conditions also in the 88th year of the reign of the judges. And there was but little alteration in the affairs of the people, save it where the people began to be more hardened in iniquity, and do more and more of that which was contrary to the commandments of God in the 89th year of the reign of the judges.
First of all, I would point out for this is it's mentioning several of the years here, 87, 88, 89, as I mentioned to several occasions, that there would be 91 years of the reign of the judges prior to the birth of Christ. Right, so you can see it's getting real close to the end here now. It was counting on 87, 88, 89. Okay, now in these particular years, as we've already said, that many of the people did not receive the message of Samuel the Lamanite well. So now it says that there was a little change in these years. The same where the people began to be more hardened in iniquity, right? So it got even worse. So if they were doing evil before, it says now they're even more hardened and more likely to be in iniquity. So that it was not getting better; it was getting worse. And again, it's not too surprising because here they had a prophet of God come to them and deliver the message, and yet it didn't even faze them. They were just ready to throw stones at him or shoot arrows at him, and made him leave. So clearly now once that phase is done, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse, and that's what's happening during these particular years.
But it came to pass in the 90th year of the reign of the judges, there were great signs given unto the people, and wonders, and the words of the prophets began to be fulfilled. And angels did appear unto men, wise men, and did declare unto them glad tidings of great joy. Thus in this year the scriptures began to be fulfilled. Nevertheless, the people began to harden their hearts, all save it were the most believing part of them, both the Nephites and also of the Lamanites, and began to depend upon their own strength and upon their own wisdom, saying, some things they may have guessed right, among so many. But behold, we know that all these great and marvelous works cannot come to pass, of which has been spoken.
All right, so now we've arrived at year 90, right, and it says there were great signs given unto the people and wonders, all right, and see, the Samuel the Lamanite had predicted certain things would happen, and I know the prophets have predicted things over the years, and so now, as we're within the 2 years now of the birth of Christ, so that now they're seeing these signs come to pass, right, and so in 14 it says, the angels appeared unto men, and it says, gave them glad tidings of great joy, the scriptures began to be fulfilled. So there were signs being given, and people were seeing visions and angels and such that were in concert with the predictions that were made, or the prophecies that were given, right? So based on that, was everybody now convinced that the prophecies were true? No. Okay. You see in 15 it says the people began to. It says nevertheless the people began to harden their hearts, right? Except the most believing part of them. So those who were already believing, and you think about it, that's kind of how it works, all right? Is that if you already believe, you already have faith, and then you see a sign that just makes you more believe, all right? You said, well, that's good. You accept that because you're looking for that. Right? Whereas those who were hardened, it says it wasn't enough to turn them around, right? But still, they couldn't deny that it happened. But how did they explain this happening? That something that was predicted by the prophet. In 16, it says, and sometimes we, sometimes I've heard the same kind of an explanation given for, there are people today who, claim to be, psychics, or, they predict the future, and, some have go on TV, or they write books, or whatever, and all their predictions. But, they make 1,000 predictions, and one comes true. You say, well, the odds are you guess enough things, you're going to get something right, okay? So, and that's what they're saying here in 16. They said, oh yeah, the prophets, they said lots of things. So out of all those things, yeah, just random factors. So one or two had to come to pass. So they had to be right on. So some things they may have guessed right among so many, right? But we know that the really marvelous things that they said were going to happen are not going to happen, right? So that's how they were trying to explain this. But because they didn't want to admit that it's a prophet, so they said, well, but let's, that big one that they talked about, the day, the night, and the day, that one's never going to happen, all right, with no darkness and all the other things that they predicted, the great marvelous things. We're not going to see those. These are just random things that they just guessed right.
And they began to reason and to contend among themselves, saying that it is not reasonable that such a being as a Christ shall come. If so, and if he be the Son of God, the Father of heaven and of earth, as it has been spoken, why will he not show himself unto us, as well as unto them who shall be at Jerusalem? Yea, why will he not show himself in this land, as well as in the land of Jerusalem?
As they're considering what the biggest prophecy was that the Son of God was going to come to earth, right? And so they were saying, well, no, this doesn't sound right. Or it says it's not reasonable that this would happen. And if it did happen, we're being told he's going to appear in Jerusalem, right? He's going to come down to the people of Jerusalem. We don't live in Jerusalem. How are we supposed to even know that's going to happen, right? There's no TVs, right? There's no satellite things to see what's going on. So how are we supposed to even know what that happened? It's easy enough to predict something's going to happen somewhere where we're never going to be and never going to see. So how would we even know that it's right? It would be like today saying, okay, so somebody's going to do something on Mars, all right? The next year there's going to be, the Son of God's going to be on Mars, all right? So how would you know, right? None of us are going to be there. But that's what I'm saying. So why, if he really is the Son of God, why does he have to only go there? Why can't he come here too? Why can't he let us see him? And why do we just have to believe that it's going to happen over there? And why can't he come here too?
But behold, we know that this is a wicked tradition, which has been handed down unto us by our fathers, to cause us that we should believe in some great and marvelous thing which should come to pass, but not among us, but in a land which is far distant, a land which we know not. Therefore they can keep us in ignorance, for we cannot witness with our own eyes that they are true. And they will, by the cunning and the mysterious arts of the evil one, work some great mystery which we cannot understand, which will keep us down to be servants of their words, and also servants unto them, for we depend upon them to teach us the word, and thus will they keep us in ignorance, if we will yield ourselves unto them all the days of our lives.
Speaking of this not being a prophecy, this is no prophecy, this is just what they're calling a wicked tradition that's been handed down from our fathers. And again, remember that these are the Nephite people, so that the tradition was handed down, or the prophecy was handed down from one generation to another among the Nephite people, because it goes all the way back to the original Nephi and Lehi, and so it's been handed down ever since then. So what I'm saying is, from generation to generation, this was just a tradition. This isn't really going to happen. And it repeats here what we just said from the previous 3 verses in the second half of 20. It says, and then now we're being told to believe that this great marvelous thing is going to happen, but not here. It's going to happen in a land far away, a land which we don't know, which this way they can keep us in ignorance, because we're not going to see it with our own eyes. And so it's sure that Satan coming and say, okay, it happened today. Well, how can we prove that? How do we know? How do we know it's happened? It didn't happen here, it's happening over there, and we have no way of getting there or seeing what's going on there. So what, was just supposed to trust them? When I read that kind of thing, I'm thinking at first, what's the big deal, right? Why would somebody be so adamant to say that, that I don't want to believe what you're telling me? I mean, you would think that somebody would be happy to hear that the God's going to send His Son, right? So why are they so opposed to this? Look in 21. It says that if we believe this, right, then we're saying that whatever they tell us, we're going to have to believe it and basically do what we're being told to do. It says they'll keep us down to be servants to their words and servants to them, for we have to depend on them to teach us the word, because we're saying that they know better than us now, so that for our whole lives we'll be servants to them if we give into this, especially if we don't even believe it's true. Right? So these are the ones who supposedly have this great connection with God that are going to tell us that God's Son has come. Well, then they're going to say, well, now we have to do what they say, because we're the people of God, and you have to just be our servants. So this is the kind of stuff that they're talking about. Even though I don't remember any time that any of these prophets saying, okay, and you're going to be my servant after Christ comes. Right? That was never even said. But if you want to make up a story, you can make up a good one. Right? It's a reason why you shouldn't want to believe.
And many more things did the people imagine up in their hearts, which were foolish and vain. And they were much disturbed, for Satan did stir them up to do iniquity continually. Yea, he did go about spreading rumors and contentions upon all the face of the land, that he might harden the hearts of the people against that which was good, and against that which should come. And notwithstanding the signs and the wonders which were wrought among the people of the Lord, and the many miracles which they did, Satan did get great hold upon the hearts of the people upon all the face of the land. And thus ended the 90th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, and thus ended the book of Helaman, according to the record of Helaman and his sons.
Just finishing up on the reaction of the people to the prophecies of Samuel the Lamanite in particular, and also things starting to happen. Right, as it says in 22, it says many more things the people imagine up in their hearts. Like I just said, for 21, to me that was something they were imagining, that if we believe in this Christ story, we're going to have to be servants to the ones who told us, even though, like I said, that they were never told that was going to be the case. So they were imagining that this was going to be the arrangement to give them a reason to not believe. So this is many more things that they imagined which were foolish and vain. It says just Satan to stir them up to do iniquity continually, right? Spreading rumors and so forth, so getting them angry with each other, and so it was just not a happy time. So it was a time for Christ to come, but they didn't really understand that. It says notwithstanding the signs and the wonders which came forth, it says still Satan had great hold upon the hearts of the people. This is occurring in the city of Zarahemla, which is kind of the capital city where the Nephites live. And so because the Nephites had kind of turned wicked at this point, so this was where Samuel the Lamanite was sent to speak to them on the walls of the city of Zarahemla. And that he having departed, and those who were the righteous ones probably just kind of staying out of the way of everybody else. This has been announced that Satan has great hold on the hearts of the people upon all the face of this land. Right? And that's the case as the 90th year ends. So it's remembering that year 91 is the countdown, so it's just a year away from the birth of Christ. This is the status in the land of Zarahemla, right? And this is the end of this is the book of Helaman, which is, you can see it ends right here, and so this is the record of Helaman and his sons. The last writer that we know of is named Nephi, right, who was the son of Helaman. So even though this book is called the Book of Helaman, it actually also contains the writing of his son Nephi, because Helaman in fact died several chapters ago, so it's the record of Helaman and his sons, and so this is the end of that particular part of the record.